Alrighty, we are live now. I can't really tell if it's 6:30 yet because my computer time seems to be a bit different from the other one. We are live now. I can't really tell if it's 6:30 yet because my computer time seems to be a bit. There we go. It's getting audio coming through on the TV. Just these funny little things didn't happen. Alrighty, let's see if we've got everyone with us. We're just waiting for a few more people. We'll just wait a bit longer and then we'll get started. Alrighty. Well, they can always watch the replay, so. All right, let's get straight to it. Presentation coming up for everyone. Anyways, I can't see your responses yet, but I'm going to get started with the presentation anyway. So here we go. I'm just gonna. There we go. Just gonna do a few little background things. All right. So, obviously, I'd just like to welcome all of you guys to the nutrition webinar. My name is Justin, and tonight I'll be taking you through some fantastic health concepts and also be giving you some great foods as well that you can add to your diet. So you can apply literally everything that you learn tonight to your life right away, and you can actually use it to transform and improve your health right away. So this is without any fancy supplements, but just purely natural remedies, which have not only been shown to be effective at treating certain conditions, but actually work better than current clinical drugs on the market. So, whoops. So for those of you who want to know a little bit more about me, I've recently completed my Bachelor of Science in Nutrition in 2017. So after 4 long years of study, it feels good to be out of the system and here serving you guys. I'm also a current member of the Complementary Medicine Association and recognized by all major health funds in Australia. That includes providers such as HBF, NIB, and Medibank that you're most likely familiar with. Some of you may ask, though, what was the motivating force behind studying nutrition? Well, for a good part of primary school and middle school, I spent my time being frustrated and obese. I remember being 15 years old and I was 85 kilos. No matter how hard I exercised, I would only drop a few kilos. Like, I was going to like these anytime fitness gyms in Subiaco here in Perth, and like I'd have PTs and stuff, and like it just didn't really offset all the Tim Tams and the pizzas, unfortunately. But But eventually, after getting a grasp of nutrition labels, I ended up losing 10 kilos by high school. But then I found that I gradually put the weight back on again later on. All right, just checking up. So can you hear now, Catherine? Try refreshing the webinar. Alrighty. So you were stuck there for a while. Yeah, sometimes the video glitches. Alrighty. Just let me know if you can kind of see everything now. So there is a bit of a time difference from the YouTube live as well. But you know, anything that you miss, Catherine, you should be able to see through the free webinar replay that you get as well. So I'm just going to continue on with the presentation for now. So anyways, getting back to what I was talking about, I reached 21 years of age and I was constipated, lethargic, overweight, asthmatic, constantly sick with the flu, and also things like ear infections. And I also had skin rashes like pityriasis, rosacea, horrible seasonal allergies, and frequent headaches. I felt like I was being punished just for being alive. I was thinking, man, like this is supposed to be the prime of my life, and I already feel terrible. I was jaded from the frustration of my weight, my energy levels, and also a constant feeling of despair that would bury that I would bury one scoop of ice cream after the other. So on that same year, soon after, I eventually bumped into what I call a whole food plant-based diet, and the change was amazing. Virtually all of my problems disappeared. All the allergies, headaches, rashes, nasal and sinus infections. And now I rarely get the flu, and I've got a tremendous amount of energy back. And I lost 14 kilos initially. So basically, I was around 85, 86 kilos in the past, and now I'm sitting healthily around 73 to 75 kilos. So by the end of this webinar, you should have some great practical advice to make similar changes in your own life. Anything that isn't covered in the webinar, you can simply ask me on the live chat or send me a message by email through the webinar details that I sent to you guys. So what will the workshop topics be? Well, a brief summary is 5 ways to increase energy and nourishment. And then we'll also do a questions and answers as well. So 5 ways to increase energy and nourishment. If you guys can hear any like dogs in the background, I apologize. They tend to bark from time to time. So anyways, moving on. 5 ways to increase energy and nourishment. Number 1, nitrate-rich vegetables. So what are the health benefits of these nitrate-rich vegetables? They have been shown to improve arterial function, improved breathing for COPD patients. So if you don't know what COPD is, that's usually chronic obstructive pulmonary disorder, which is usually a result of inflammation and mucus impeding airflow. You can also lower blood pressure with nitrate-rich vegetables as well. Improve oxygen utilization and improve exercise performance that we'll talk about a bit later. So what is it that makes nitrates so amazing? When you eat nitrate-rich vegetables like rocket lettuce or beetroot, the nitrates are absorbed via the stomach. So they'll literally go down here, and the nitrates will get absorbed into the bloodstream. And it's kind of crazy because the nitrates will literally go from the bloodstream and then they'll get secreted out through your salivary glands. And these nitrates will actually be converted into nitrites by these special bacteria in your mouth. And then you'll redigest these nitrites that have already been converted, and then they'll be absorbed back through your stomach and your small intestine as well. And those nitrites will produce this compound that's called nitric oxide. And if you know anything about nitric oxide, which I'm going to assume that you don't, nitric oxide actually helps to open your arteries. So it can literally be like open sesame for your arteries. It's really cool. And I've got some cool x-rays of the arteries and around the heart, the coronary arteries. So when you consume these nitrate-rich foods, basically that NTG there, that stands for nitroglycerin, which is part of the family of nitrate compounds. So it's often used in medications to treat chest pain and stuff, except that most other pharmaceutical drugs have a host of bad side effects that nitrates in food don't have. But yeah, you can literally see, from the left image to the right, where it's like basically the arteries weren't open before. And after consuming nitrate-rich foods, which had nitric oxide and converts to nitroglycerin, you see the arteries opening up. There's even a practice that's been known as beat doping to improve exercise performance as well. So an example would be a study that took 9 cyclists and fed them half a liter of beetroot juice. Before the beetroot juice compared to after the beetroot juice, there was a 2.8% increase in performance with the beetroot group for the 4-kilometer and the 16-kilometer cycle. So the beetroot group finished faster on average, along with a significant increase in power output, which is revealed through the energy production. So basically the beetroot group was here. And if you look at these little lines, that was like the variation in terms of the energy output and performance at each one of these little modules here. And the amount of time that it took for the beetroot group to actually finish the 4-kilometer and the 16-kilometer cycle was significantly lower. And this was like, going at high intensity speeds as well. All right, I'm just going to check to see if I still have you guys with me. Alrighty. So, what are the best food sources of nitrates? Rocket lettuce basically comes out at top. Rocket lettuce is also known as arugula as well. So it's kind of like, that kind of like curly, thin lettuce. But I'm sure there's a picture in here that I'll bring up later. But anyways, that contains 480 milligrams of nitrates per 100 grams. It's literally the highest source of nitrate out of any food. Then there's also rhubarb as well, right after that at 281 milligrams per 100 grams. Beetroot juice at 279. Cilantro at 247. butterleaf lettuce at 200, spring greens at 188, basil at 183. So if you guys like basil, get sprinkling because I love putting that in my rolls and on my sandwiches and stuff as well. And oak leaf lettuce as well at 155. And surprisingly enough, beetroot actually comes at number 10. So it's actually one of the lowest of the top 10. But yeah, like the beetroot juice tends to have more nitrates in it, but it's still good to have beetroot as a whole food versus beetroot juice, just because you get all the fiber and nutrition as well with that. Anyways, precaution for infants. So basically, yeah, don't go too crazy. Like don't like go feeding your infant like an all beetroot and rocket lettuce diet or something. Because infants can suffer from nitrotoxicity because of their small body size, but it is quite rare, however. Nitrate-rich foods such as rocket, spinach, green beans, squash, and carrots should also be avoided until the infant is at least 3 months old. Like generally speaking, you shouldn't be feeding your infants, like solid food until they reach a certain age anyway. So moving on to our second way to increase energy and nourishment, which is to add berries to your diet. So what are the health benefits of having berries in your diet? So they reduce your risk of cancer and diabetes, reduce swelling and inflammation, boost immune system function, reduce your risk of cardiovascular disease, CVD, and helps to protect the brain and liver. So I'm just going to have a drink. So whenever I feel like I'm coming down sick or have a sore throat, I just have a cup of frozen blueberries with some cereal. And the swelling usually reduces within 15 minutes, which is really cool. But I'll talk about more of that stuff later. So according to the World Cancer Research Fund, which is considered to be one of the most respected scientific research bodies in the world, they've basically found and made this quite a big statement, like usually in science, we don't say something unless we absolutely know that it's true. So we know that fruit decreases the risk of cancer, and that's of the lung, mouth, and larynx, which is the mouth and throat as well. So a meta-analysis, which is a combination of clinical trials on one topic, concluded that berries significantly reduce levels of things such as LDL cholesterol, systolic blood pressure, which is basically just, your blood pressure, fasting glucose, hemoglobin A1C, which is just a fancy way of saying glucose attached to your blood, body mass index, and tumor necrosis factor, which is just really a marker of systemic inflammation in the body. So researchers concluded that berries might be utilized as an effective and safe supplementary option to better prevent and control cardiovascular disease in patients. But what is it that makes berries so powerful? Well, berries are basically very high in antioxidants. Unique to berries in particular are a special type called anthocyanins. So they have 10 times more antioxidants than any other fruit and 50 times more than any animal product. So these antioxidants fight free radicals, which in essence are highly reactive molecules. When iron rusts in our body, like the actual iron in our blood, we basically, or when we generate energy in our cells as well, we produce these things that are called free radicals. So here's a simple way that I like to put free radicals. So free radicals, they're basically like the Incredible Hulk running through your body, damaging molecules in your body like proteins and fats, and even causing genetic damage, leading to cancerous cells forming. These monsters will literally punch through your cells and cause their guts to fall out at the microcellular level. So yeah, these free radicals are just attacking you microscopically. And when they damage your cells, that's how inflammation is caused, because inflammation comes from injury, right? Someone punches you in the eye, you get a swollen eye. That redness is inflammation. So the antioxidants that we get from our diet, and especially from berries, provides us with that police snatch squad that can catch these monsters and stop them from doing any more damage. In essence, any inflammation or damage in the body can be reduced while strengthening our immune system. All right, sweet. I'm great. I'm grateful that we've got you on board now, Catherine. I'm just taking a look at the chat box again. All right, sweet. I'm going to continue going. So, what are the berries with the highest sources of antioxidants? Generally, as a rule of thumb, when you are trying to decide, whoops, I kind of already gave away the answer for that. But generally, as a rule of thumb, when you're trying to decide which food has a high nutritional value, you can choose the darkest. So obviously, I was going to get you guys to guess which one it was, but yeah, you guys already probably saw that it was blackberries. But yeah, things like blackberries, they've got 480 units of antioxidants, so it actually makes them one of the highest antioxidant berries as well. And also, berries are just very high in antioxidants in general. But things like blueberries as well, cranberries, basically at 330 units. You've also got strawberries at 310. And yeah, that's pretty much it for the four top strawberries that are the highest. So when you look at the research from before, many of these berries are listed in the study. So if you want to have cranberries as cranberry juice, I'd recommend finding one without added sugar. If you want to have a blueberry smoothie, it's even better as smoothies keep all of the fiber and they retain things like nutrients. But that being said, I recommend drinking both gradually as not to peak your blood sugar, which can cause harm to your arteries. But yeah, like you can see that there's so many different types of berries that were studied, and like they basically have tested them on so many different people. But yeah, it's really really interesting to see all the different ways that they've tested berries. So basically, with the studies, they've showed that blueberries can be fantastic for improving the immune system. So clinical research showed that blueberries can boost natural killer cell activity. So natural killer cells can sound pretty bad. Basically, they work to destroy viruses and foreign bacteria and destroy cancerous cells. So our body on average has about 2 billion of these little guys just running through our bodies. But a clinical study revealed that people who added 180 grams of blueberries to their diet each day actually doubled the number of natural killer cells in their body from 2 billion to 4 billion. So that means that you get a huge improvement in your immune system by eating these basically delicious nature's candy food. Like, I don't know who doesn't like berries, but I love berries. So, but for those of you who are looking at this image in front of you right now, these are cardamom pods. Like, not everyone's going to know that, but basically, research has shown that when petri dish studies were done with cardamom, they found that when you sprinkle cardamom powder on blueberries, you can actually supercharge the natural killer cell activity to basically destroy up to 10 times more cancer cells. So it's basically like combining cardamom and blueberries creates a cancer fighting cocktail, which is really cool. So you can even have, blueberry and cardamom muffins as well. I'm happy to link you to a recipe if you want that as well. Anyways, just have a drink. So, number 3, adding flax seeds to your diet. So, what are the benefits of flax seeds? So basically, they lower your blood pressure 2 to 3 times better than the leading blood pressure medications, which is actually pretty damn impressive. They protect against breast cancer as well, protect against prostate cancer, and they also help to reduce inflammation. And they're also a proven treatment in clinical research for constipation. So, flax seeds are one of the oldest crops, having been cultivated since the beginning of civilization. The Latin name Linum utaticum is definitely a difficult one to pronounce, but it has the meaning very useful. So it was introduced and used in the United States by early colonists to produce fiber and clothing, and it's used to produce linen up till the 1990s. So flax seeds have basically been the focus of diet and disease research for the last 2 decades due to its potential health benefits. So there are two primary components that make flax seeds powerful: omega-3 fats and lignans. So when it comes to omega-3 fats, flax seeds are the richest plant source of polyunsaturated fats like ALA, which is alpha-linolenic acid. So healthy fats that support brain function. They're the fats that line your cells and improve skin rigidity and stuff as well. And clinical studies have shown that increases in ALA are associated with a significant decrease in blood pressure. So if you have any problems with blood pressure, definitely a fantastic thing to do. So omega-3 fats provide beneficial fats to maintain artery and brain function, like I already said. So when it comes to lignans, they both act as antioxidants and phytoestrogens. So you may be thinking like, wait, aren't phytoestrogens like sex hormones that promote cancer and give men boobs? Like basically like a plant hormone that just messes around with the body and gives people pimples or something. But the funny thing is, contrary to the public opinion, and I've got to say I've run up against this quite a lot with other people, is that when it comes to the growth of cancerous tumors and those found in the breast and prostate, phytoestrogens and studies have actually been shown to reduce the growth of cancerous tumors in prostate and breast cancer trials. And also, phytoestrogens are not like, you know, human estrogens either. So they actually function differently in the body. So flax seeds have been explored in blood pressure research too. So when you look at like, double blind, placebo controlled, randomized control studies, like all the fancy terms, basically what they found is that 110 patients with hypertension, the control group was given a placebo, and while the intervention group was given 30 grams of flax seeds every day for 6 months. So basically, when you look at this graph here, it shows the mean systolic and diastolic blood pressure across the whole time period. So from 0 months to 6 months. So basically what you find is that this is the dotted group here, the flaxseed group, is that when people incorporated flax seeds into their diet, it wasn't necessarily like a dramatic shift after the first week, but basically people's blood pressure started dropping over time. So it took about a month before there was a first dip in the blood pressure, and people's blood pressure would keep going down. So yeah, these are people that had high blood pressure and they managed to lower their blood pressure with flax seeds, which is amazing. So they ended up getting a 10-point drop on average of their systolic blood pressure and an average 7-point drop in their diastolic blood pressure. So while the control group over the 6 months had a gradual increase in blood pressure, the flax seeds are like nature's blood pressure medication, providing these amazing drops in blood pressure and no harmful side effects, only good side effects of improving, your risk, like improving the likelihood of not getting prostate and breast cancer as well. And they're also, great for your brain. So you've got nothing to lose, and they're so cheap compared to all those pharmaceutical drugs out there. calcium blockers, all these other drugs as well. So, what are the side effects of these blood pressure medications, like the antihypertensive drugs, like Norvasc, Procardium, and Procardia? Well, they only have basically been shown to reduce your blood pressure by 8 points for systolic and 3 points for diastolic. And that's also not including, all the side effects that they come with, which can be things like insomnia, so difficulty sleeping, depression, fatigue, symptoms of asthma, impotence, for the guys out there, that's scary, dizziness, constipation, and also headaches. So you can literally go from being on your flax seeds to basically just being on the high blood pressure medication straight to the flax seeds to get rid of that constipation. So, but yeah, you can also get things like swollen ankles as well from the blood pressure medication. So that was information from the American Heart Association as well. So that being said, whenever you're making changes in your medication, you should always consult your doctor because when you're basically coming off a drug and if you're making any diet changes as well, I think it's more like there's more of a risk that your blood pressure might go too low. If you're making changes in your diet as well as staying on your blood pressure medication. But yeah, it's good to contact your doctor about that anyway. So, if you're wanting to access the benefits of flax seeds, how should I have them, right? Like, they should generally be freshly grounded to access the fatty acids and other beneficial nutrients. And this is due to the tough outer husk that can basically like prevent, absorption into your body. Like seeds are seeds for a reason, right? They're like the seeds of life. So they don't want to be digested by you. But when we can grind them down or we chew them, that's when we really access the health of those flax seeds. So the basic recommendation is 1 grounded tablespoon of golden or brown flax seeds. That's the current recommendation as well. So number 4, add more complex carbohydrates to your diet. So what are the health benefits? Reduces the risk of bowel cancer, promotes a healthy gut flora, reduces the risk of mortality, provides long-term satiety and steady energy, decreases cholesterol levels, reduces constipation, and yeah, like that's pretty awesome, right? But people might be thinking like, wait, like aren't carbs like bad for you, right? Like, there's the whole thing about Dr. Atkins being out there with his carbohydrate gram counter and the plant paradox, which I actually, went and I looked at the first scientific reference that he used, and he was like, "Oh, eggs, they're great. They lower your cholesterol." And then it turned out that the research article actually said the exact opposite, where it was like, "Oh, eggs raise your cholesterol." So, these people, these doctors, they're just so, some of them can be so full of shit, to be honest, like, excuse my French. But yeah, like medical doctors virtually get less than 10 hours of nutrition training if they get any at all. So they're basically trained to dispense drugs, and that's pretty much the primary outlet that they'll go for if you have any problems, right? Oh, you got a headache, take some painkillers, right? Got high blood pressure, take high blood pressure medication. Don't have flax seeds, right? And there's obviously a lot of things about reimbursements and stuff from pharmaceutical companies. Um, but yeah. Anyways, I've also got a video on that, but I don't have time to share it with you now. But will send it to you later. So, whenever you look at the blue zones around the world, like the populations that have the best health and longevity, they all center their diets around healthy whole food carbohydrates, like things like rice and beans and vegetables and fruits. In these places like, Costa Rica and certain parts of Italy, Icaria and Greece. But when we look at places like Okinawa in Japan, basically, um, you know, Okinawa in Japan was actually a famous place for people that they called centenarians. So this was like a large group of people who were born like pre World War II, and they all basically lived over 100 years of age. So their diet was centered around purple sweet potatoes, beans, and rice, and they were all living beyond 100 years old. But obviously, the newer generations of kids, they introduced KFC into Okinawa, so you can imagine what happened after that. So there are some important distinctions that we need to make about carbohydrates. Not all carbohydrates are healthy carbohydrates. I think a lot of people tend to basically, they want to label, but or like flag all carbs off as bad, but it's just not true. Like there are healthy carbs and there are bad carbs. So good carbs are generally unprocessed or minimally processed. So if I was going to describe unprocessed carbohydrates, like it would be things like whole wheat oats, right? So that would be unprocessed. Or minimally processed carbohydrates would be things like quick oats. So the quick oats would basically have the same health benefit. They just don't have anything removed from them. So what are good carbs? Things like whole grains, like oats, brown rice, quinoa, buckwheat. Then there's legumes like beans and lentils, which are fantastic foods. All the like areas around the world, like the blue zones, they all include like beans and legumes in their diet, and they've got the best health outcomes. So big fan of beans, guys. Get them in your diet. They're also high in protein, so they're satisfying and they're nutrient dense. Things like potatoes. So sweet potatoes can actually be really nourishing over just regular potatoes. And if you remember the concept that we talked about, the darker the vegetable, the more nutritious it is. So things like sweet potatoes, the purple sweet potato is obviously going to be much more nutritious than basically, an orange sweet potato. So I basically have found some royal, well, like purple sweet potatoes at Golden Choice. I don't know where else you can get them. I might have seen them at Spud Shed maybe once, but that might have just been purple carrots. But purple carrots is another example of, a food that the purple one is higher in nutrition than the orange one. But obviously, there are issues with expense too, so you have to keep that in mind. So then we have things, like bad carbs, which are generally refined carbohydrates. So they have like a high glycemic index. So they can cause inflammation in your arteries and organs from the massive peak in blood sugar. So eating things such as white Wonder Bread has been shown to peak your blood sugar and cause your blood sugar to crash as your pancreas basically overreacts to the excessive amounts of insulin that you have to release. So basically, the insulin um, is basically greater than the amount of blood sugar in your blood, and then you end up actually going and having a lower blood sugar than when you started. So yeah, you basically end up being hungrier. So I don't know if any of you have just had like white bread and jam, and then like felt kind of really hangry or irritable after a while. But it's definitely happened to me. So bad carbs are things like white rice and pasta, things like white flour, and also things like white potatoes due to their high glycemic index, and also processed sugars and syrups, maple syrup, other types of syrups that will cause your blood sugar to peak. But the good news about things like white flours and bread is that you can find the wholemeal varieties of bread, which basically haven't had any of the fiber removed, so they don't peak your blood sugar in the same way. And you can also have wholemeal pastas instead of white rice and white pasta, so you have whole grain brown rice, and those things aren't going to peak your blood sugar either, which is good. But yeah, things like white potatoes have a higher glycemic index as well because they've got much higher carbohydrates in them than most foods. But they also have a lower nutritional content as well. Like when you look at other types of potatoes, like you'll see red or purple or other types, they just generally have a lower glycemic impact on your body versus the white potato. So good carbohydrates are generally known as starches, which are long complex chains of sugars. So we have specific enzymes in our mouth and in our gut that break these down. So these sugars cause a slower peak in blood sugar as it takes longer for the enzymes to break down the sugars, as they can only separate one link at a time. So when you look here at this diagram, what I mean by that is, when these enzymes come to break down the sugars that you eat from these whole meal, like whole grain carbohydrates, like the brown rice or whatever, your enzymes can't just go, yeah, I'm going to grab that enzyme. Like they can only break down one of the links on the carbs, basically from the left or the right hand side where the chains of sugars end. So that's actually what causes the slower release in blood sugar, because the enzymes will break that one down. And then once this one's gone, they'll break that one down. And then they'll just keep going through this cascade of breaking down sugars. And it takes a lot longer. So then you get a much more smooth rise in your blood sugar over time and more satisfaction as well. But basically, when you remove the fiber content, you expose more of these sugars, and then that, especially when you blend and process things, it can basically break a lot of these chains as well, a lot of these long chains of carbohydrates. So they'll actually just digest into your body real much faster as well. So when we eat carbohydrates in a whole form, such as beans and potatoes and legumes, there's fiber, phytonutrients, and antioxidants that also help to slow the release of the sugars, like I already said. But yeah, I hope that was a good explanation. So we literally have trillions of microscopic gut bacteria in our digestive tract. So the average weight of these guys makes up about half a kilo of your body weight, which is pretty huge, right? Carbohydrates that we eat from plant foods, along with fiber too, act as prebiotics, which in essence act as food for our good gut bacteria. So in return, basically for feeding these guys with the food that we don't eat, these guys give us fatty acids such as butyrate, which is directly used by our gut lining, our gut wall, as a direct energy source, which actually helps to nourish our bowels and keeps them healthy. And it reduces our risk of bowel cancer. So when you look at the research literature, like bowel cancer is actually one of the most reversible forms of cancer, and it's just by eating a very high plant food diet as well. So there's even evidence from decades ago showing that high carbohydrate diets actually produce better blood sugar levels compared to high fat diets in the same person. But yeah, so when you look at this diagram here, right, basically you see that when people actually eat a high fat diet, they actually have a higher blood sugar from this research versus people that actually have a high carbohydrate diet. So high carbohydrate diet actually leads to lower blood sugar, which a lot of people might be confused by. But there's definitely an explanation for that, where I'm not sure if I talk about it later on in my webinar, but I'll quickly run over it now, where basically I think I do cover it. So I'll just talk about it later if it doesn't come up. So basically, lucky last, number 5, add more healthy fats to your diet. So what are the health benefits? They reduce your appetite and provide steady energy, especially when you combine them with other carbohydrates. You can even combine healthy fats with things like white bread, and you can slow down the blood sugar impact on your body. Not that I recommend that you have white bread in your diet, but you know, you use it to your own will. So healthy fats also help to improve skin condition as well, in some individuals. They also help to improve artery function, and they also decrease the risk of obesity, cardiovascular disease, and type 2 diabetes as well. So yeah, like basically, with the satisfying um, nature of healthy fats, they find that I'll talk about what the healthy fats are later, but basically, they find that people will literally unconsciously eat less when they have more healthy fats. So they'll either maintain the same weight in clinical research, or they'll actually lose weight. So even people eating things like, like a cup of peanut butter a day weren't gaining weight. So it's actually quite exciting. But obviously without the white sugar and the vegetable oils added to it, though. So now I know some of you are getting excited, thinking like, what what are these healthy fats that you speak of? So here's the big unveiling, guys. Wait, I'll just check to see if I had anyone. Okay, cool. Just checking up on the live chat before I move on. Make sure you guys. Okay, cool. All right, we're still good. All right, so here's the big unveiling anyway. I know I'm keeping you waiting, and you're like, tell me. But anyways, nuts like almonds, Brazil nuts, pecans, seeds like sesame, pumpkin, sunflower, and also things like avocados like hass, shepherd, and maluma. So when I obviously, use the brackets, I'm I'm not saying that there aren't more. Like basically, most nuts, seeds, and avocados are pretty much really healthy for you. Just in, the health impacts might just vary a bit, like we talked about. Well, we'll probably be talking about soon. So, anyways, these good fats, they all contain mono and polyunsaturated fats, and then there are the bad fats. So, unfortunately, the bad fats are things like animal fats, like processed meats, dairy, and butter. So, like, most of these are pretty much like in the traffic light system considered red light foods. And it's mainly because they're all really high in saturated fat, trans fats, and cholesterol. Then you've got things like, vegetable oils, which people think are healthy, but have virtually no nutrition and very high in saturated fat. Like, I remember JD Roth from The Biggest Loser talking about this, and I also did a follow up on that. But yeah, basically, when you have 2 tablespoons of any vegetable oil in your diet, because all the fiber and the nutrition has all been taken out, it's literally just 100% fat. So, people were finding that basically about, 1/8 to 1/5, depending on how much energy you are having per day, can be taken up, can be used up just by those vegetable oils. And they're not even satisfying either because there's no fiber in them. So, and also things like fish fats like salmon, Atlantic, and bass as well. But why are some good and some bad? Well, when you look at the research, saturated fats are known to be universally toxic to the cells of our bodies. So while monounsaturated fats, that are high in nuts, seeds, and avocados are basically they found out that they're either non-toxic or have a cytoprotective effect, meaning that they protect the cells in the body. But yeah, basically they found that saturated fats, they're universally toxic to the cells of our bodies. So yeah, basically, any foods that are very high in saturated fat are going to cause toxicity, and they're also going to produce the free radicals that we talked about before. Anyways, here is a good little explanation as well. or at least just a diagram that helps to explain it. So basically, when you see the blue labels here, that's the monounsaturated fatty acids. So basically, these can actually be safely detoxified by the body, and they can also be stored safely in our fat cells as well. While on the other hand, things like saturated fats, they can actually produce these waxy, harmful fats that produce free radicals. And then they also produce, basically saturated fats also lead to lipotoxicity. So lipotoxicity is basically where, your cells are becoming toxified. And this is actually kind of in part where the whole issue of high blood sugar comes into play, because these saturated fats, they can literally block up our cells, and then they can stop things like insulin from our pancreas from working, so that we actually can't allow the doors to open for sugar to enter our cells. So basically, people that are diabetic, they consume high fat diets, but then they also consume like high carb diets too, like processed carbs. So they get this massive peak in their blood sugar, and basically all the doors of the cells tend to be closed off as well. So they suffer from chronic high blood sugar, which can cause artery paralysis, can crystallize in your blood and into your arteries, and also cause inflammation as a result of that as well. But great news for avocado lovers, because clinical research shows that eating an avocado every day for just days can, in essence, decrease total cholesterol by 17%, decrease, total cholesterol and LDL cholesterol, and it can also decrease your triglycerides by 22%, and also increase your good cholesterol, which is your high density lipoproteins, by 11%. So your good cholesterol. So nuts have amazing health properties to basically reduce heart disease risk and cancer growth. So if you look at this graph here, walnuts have the highest antioxidant content out of 9 other nuts. So yeah, here's the graph here, sorry. But yeah, look at that. So walnuts basically have the highest amount of antioxidants, followed by pecans and also peanuts. And if you want to basically get in perspective how much antioxidants is in walnuts, basically 25 walnuts has about 8 grams of vitamin C. And if you want to put that in perspective, that's basically the same vitamin C content as 100 oranges. So you could eat 25 walnuts and get the same amount of vitamin C as 100 oranges. So if you're eating oranges when you're sick, like, just turn to walnuts, because they're going to provide some awesome vitamin C content in there for you too. So so other nuts like pecans, peanuts, and pistachios, they have high amounts too. But the cool thing about these nuts is, because they've got such a high antioxidant content as well, you'll see that things like walnuts actually destroy cancer cells the most, followed by pecans, followed by Brazil nuts, almonds, and yeah, like, it's pretty amazing how you can eat nuts and destroy cancer cells in your body, because most people would think, oh, these nuts are going to make me fat. But in reality, they actually help you to either maintain your weight or lose weight. And then they also help to fight cancer as well, which is pretty amazing. But anyways, looking at another study involving 80,000 women, those who ate nuts 5 times per week, they actually reduced their risk of heart disease by a huge 35%, and their risk of type 2 diabetes by 27%. Another thing to mention about nuts is that they also have a complex array of fatty acids that bind to and remove cholesterol from our bodies, in studies on walnuts and pecans and peanuts as well. So that's it for today, guys. I know I dropped a load on you, but yeah, give me a sec to basically jump out of PowerPoint, and I'll answer any questions that you have for the next 7 or so minutes. All right. Do we have any questions from anyone? I'm not seeing anything in the chat bar. I'm just gonna refresh it now. Yeah, no worries, Catherine. All right. Just let me know if you have any questions. You can just follow me up with an email or anything you want. So, all right. So if I'm just gonna be on here for another 30 seconds to see if there's any more questions that come up from you guys in the chat box on the right. So for anyone watching, yeah, just basically, yeah, give me any of your questions. Alrighty. I'm just going to assume that no one has any questions, so I'm going to stop the broadcast now. Anyways, thank you all for listening, and I will talk to you later. All right, thanks. Bye.